Shalom, shalom, everybody. Bruchim habayim, Erev Tov. Chodesh Tov. Yeah. So welcome everybody to this wonderful opportunity to learn from a very, very special person whom we've learned to love over these past couple of years as she's made herself part of our very, very loving CBB community and Santa Barbara Jewish community, because I know that Mesa Shul members have claimed Rivka as their own as well. So those of you who have not had the pleasure of meeting or hearing Professor Rivka Amato, I'll just tell you just a couple of brief biographical facts about Rivka, who was born in Holon in Israel. She spent most of her adult life in Jerusalem, where she received her degree in education from Hebrew University in Jerusalem. And then moved to Berkeley to assume a teaching position at Berkeley way back in 2004. That's already 20 years ago. 20 years ago. One of the things that makes Rivka unique in our community is that she traces her ancestry back to a couple of very prominent Sephardic families, the Amatos and the Barbuts. And after their expulsion from Spain in the late 15th century, those families found their way to the Balkans, and then Rivka's parents made Aliyah to Israel in 1933. And Rivka grew up in a Ladino-speaking home. And I know that Rivka will tell you a little bit about Ladino as a language and as a part and the essence of Sephardic culture. It's from her family and from her grandmother that she learned some of these very ancient and beautiful Ladino melodies, which she'll share some of those with us tonight. So she has many, many programs, and she's presented some of them already. I'm certainly looking forward to tonight's program, Sephardic Women and Their Role in Preserving the Sephardic Ladino Culture. So please welcome tonight Professor Rivka Amato, our last chance before she goes to Berkeley.
Thank you, Mark. Good evening. It's so lovely to be here again. It's really an honor that you gave me this opportunity to share some of my insights, some of my knowledge about Sephardic women. And so let me start that when I was a child, little child, whenever I felt sad, my grandmother, her name was actually Rivka. By the way, in the Sephardic tradition, they named the grandchildren on, when after a living relative, as opposed to the Ashkenazi, when it's just the opposite. Anyway, so she would take me in her arms and she say to me, "Siempre con cabeza alta," and the meaning is never despair, and always keep your head up in face of adversity. So this phrase actually captures the Sephardic spirit, and especially Sephardic women that have been saying this to their children, to their daughters, to their granddaughters for over 2,000 years. It's also a commitment that holds today. So tonight, what I would like to do, I would like to review some of the history of these heroic Sephardic women, and I must tell you that is a challenging task, since women were largely invisible in the history, and therefore there is really little documentation about women experience. It became even more difficult to trace information after the major traumatic event, which is the expulsion in 1492. And also in the Ottoman countries, the public life was controlled by men. And so, of course, the information that we gather is mostly, it's sort of like a biased information. And so we don't have a lot of documents that we can learn about the authentic life of Sephardic women. However, there is one window that it's open and can give us some, insights. And these are the songs that women sang, but also composed. And the song really unraveled the life experience of the Sephardic women. And tonight, actually, I'm going to share some of the songs and try to illustrate some of, the ideas or motifs about Sephardic women. So after the expulsion, let me see here. Okay, so first of all, for those who are not familiar, the Sephardim are the descendant of the Jews who lived in Spain and Portugal for over 2 millennia, and then they fled forcefully out of the Iberian Peninsula, and mostly to the Ottoman countries, but also to North Africa and to the New World. And after the edict, which happened in 1492, the Jews were asked either to leave the country or to convert into Christianity. So what happened at that time, the Jewish community was divided into 3 groups. Those who remain faithful to their religion and who left Spain. And then the other group were the one who converted to Christianity. We call them the new Christians. And the third group are the one who converted, but secretly they kept the Jewish faith and mostly the Jewish ritual. The one who remained faithful to their faith and forced to leave Spain, the 2 major destinations were the world of the Islam from, as I said, Morocco, Egypt, and Palestine also, and mostly the Balkans. And the second route is to go to Portugal, which is actually closest. And then from Portugal, some of them moved to the Netherlands and to the Dutch colonies, the New World. Then we had Brazil, Curacao, Mexico, New Mexico, Colorado, Arizona, and even Texas. Now, about the new Christians, they were trying very hard to embrace a new identity. They converted to Christianity. However, they still were facing or subjected to social and mostly political restriction. And first of all, they had restriction about who they can marry, where they can live, which profession they can work with, and also legal restrictions about even moving out of the Iberian Peninsula in terms of immigration into new colonies. So their life actually was really miserable. So they were trying very, very hard to assimilate and to be part of the Christian society at that time. However, the Christian looked at them as a second-class citizen, and they were subjected, as I said, to persecution. The third group, the crypto-Jews, which we call them also anusim. Anusim is from the word ones in Hebrew, which is actually rape. That's the literal translation. Or also they call maranos. And they converted publicly, but secretly, as I said, they kept the ritual, the domestic ritual, in secret. They remain in Spain and Portugal. And for a while, the Inquisition were after them, so they ended up moving to new location, new settlements. And even though they went to America, the New World, the Inquisition were after them as well. Okay, so what I would like to do today in my lecture, I would like to divide it actually into 3 parts. The first one is to talk about the Sephardic women who fled the Iberian Peninsula and moved to the Ottoman countries. It's mostly established 2 vigorous, I would say, communities, one in Istanbul or Constantinople, or the other one is in Salonika. The second group is the Sephardic crypto women who remain in Spain and in Portugal and forced to convert to Christianity. And so I'm going to talk a little bit about their domestic ritual and what we can learn about their contribution to preserving the culture through performing this ritual. And I want to end with an example of a heroic, iconic figure. Her name is Donna Gracia Nasi, which is the first Renaissance feminist, if we call her, feminist Sephardic leader, and how she managed to save hundreds of converses and exhibit really an extraordinary moral leadership skills. Okay, so overall we can say that the life of Sephardic women in both groups, both the crypto and both the one who lived in the Ottoman country, was characterized by suppression and resistance at the same time. So they were, of course, they were living in a patriarchal society, and the implication of living in patriarchal society that women were not allowed to be involved, in public life. They expected to exhibit good character, to be obedient, and of course to be loyal to their husbands and to their families. But overall, the ethos out there was of degrading the women, especially among the rabbis that viewed the women, at that time, they viewed the women as main obstacle to achieving ethical purification, which is quite interesting because women not necessarily follow the rabbi's objection, and they continue to do what they really wanted to do, but we'll talk about it. So women they were regarded as a threat to the masculine world, and the one who trying to be, to show some signs of independence, they were condemned. So, as I said, despite all this limitation and restrictions, women demonstrated strong commitment to the Jewish community and to the Jewish faith. Okay, so the first group of the women that I want to talk about is the one who left the Iberian Peninsula, and they were secluded from the public domain, which public domain is, it's regarded as the masculine area. And so they were not allowed to go out to the streets, to go out to the marketplace, to the ports, or even to coffee houses, and even synagogues. The majority of women were illiterate, and that's very important because the counterpart, which is the Ashkenazi women, they were not illiterate. They knew how to read and write, but the Sephardic women were not. And because the idea is that they should devote their life to the home, to the family, especially the cleaning of the home. The cleaning was a major attribute, and the prevailing attitude, as I mentioned, is that the girls, they just don't need to study, they don't need to learn. They have to be prepared to have a family and to take care of children. So the young girls remained at home, And of course, and they took care of their brothers or a sister. So the home for the Sephardic women was a sort of what I call it a micro-universe. And what does it mean? That they able to, even though they were segregated or isolated from the outside world, inside their home they were managed to express their creativity and their talent. For example, they learned how to tell stories. They were very artistic. They did a lot of craft, embroidery, what we call, yeah? They did, fashion, for example, was very important for Sephardic women, dressmakers, weavers. They also were involved in charitable activity. And by the way, the Sephardic women who were singers, they are actually the major, I would say, force in the community that through their singing, they managed to raise some funds for poor families. And of course, they did a lot of music. Another important task of Sephardic women is about healing the community. And Sephardic women believed, that's part of the prejudice, they live in the evil eye. And so women were trained how to get rid of evil eye. And they used all kinds of substance, especially they kept it in their kitchen, which is like rose water and honey and salt, and they mixed them all together in order to remove, this evil eye. And of course, over the years, this tradition was faded. Okay, so what is the major contribution of this group? I said there are two primary contributions. One is that they kept the pure Castilian dialect. The pure Castilian dialect is the Ladino, what we are, the language of the Sephardim. And why it was so important? Because since they were isolated from the outside world, so they kept the old Castilian dialect that they brought from Spain. And their ability to absorb words from the outside world, like from the outside community, was very, very limited. Unlike the men who worked outside, and they were in touch with the Greek and the Turk, and they brought some, words from these communities, borrowed some words, so the vocabulary was different. But the Sephardic women really kept the pure dialect. So that's one. The second one is the Ladino music, which is activity that mostly was dominated by Sephardic women. And the repertoire was about their Jewishness, their Jewish pride, their Jewish identity, and also about their life experience, especially the ballads. They're talking about their fantasies, their frustrations, and they were singing among themselves, like, with their other, women friends, and also they were teaching their children all these songs. So the music is mostly the ballads, yeah, or the romancerot, and the canticas. And so what we learned from this song, that the Sephardic women were not just, passive in terms of, just accepting life as it is and doing whatever man is expecting them to do, but they were really, they really demonstrated some, agency, or I would say some character. And also the collective singing helped them to generate this bond, or what we call sisterhood, with the other women, and empower them and strengthen actually their identity. Okay, so within the Sephardic women, there were two kinds of singers. One is called campanas, that they were invited to weddings in order to cheer up the audience. So that was acceptable, but as long as they come in a group for a wedding. And the idea is also that when they receive the donation for their singings, then they use this donation to help a poor family. And the other group of singers were the cantaderas, and they usually the castañeda, that you're probably familiar with this, like the flamenco one, and you find them mostly in Morocco, and in Balkan it's called tanderas. Okay, so now I'm going to move to singing, and I want to tell you about this particular song. It's called Mama Yo No Tengo Visto. And these are the lyric in Ladino, but here you can read the English translation. Okay, so this song it's about a girl who is suing her dreams. And she's sitting by the window. By the way, the window is one of the major metaphors in a lot of Sephardic songs, and it symbolizes mostly their eagerness or their desire to step out of this domestic arena, okay, to get some contact with the outside world. So she was working with her bastidor. Bastidor is the frame that you can do embroidery. And the first two verses, she's working and having a conversation with her mother. And she's telling her that about a unique bird, which in Ladino is called pacharico. And this bird came and made a nest in her heart, or the heart is actually, the metaphor for the heart is the salon. Salon is, is like the room. And then, so up to this point, it's very optimistic. And then suddenly she gets, this message, and she learned that her imaginary lover fell for another woman. So basically, she lost him. So it's hard for her to accept it. However, the way that she comforts herself is, first of all, she's going back to her, seclusion, a little, a corner, and also she's asking for some candies to sweeten the bitterness of, of this bad news. So, so let me sing this to you. Mama, yo no tengo visto pasar con os dos mavis, rubio como la canela, blanca como el jazmín, rubio como la canela, blanca como el jazmín. ¿Quién es este pacharico que en mi salón entró? Procuró hacerse nido, ardiente de mi corazón. Procuró hacerse nido, ardiente mi corazón. Assentada en mi ventana, la vara del bastidor, haver muévame truceron, que en mi amor se desposó. Haver muévame truceron, que en mi amor se desposó. Okay, so here is another song that I want to introduce you, and now I need some of your comments. What do you see here in this picture? What? A bride and a groom, very good. What else do you see? What? Water. Yeah. Very nice. So you see a crossing point between the river and the sea. Yeah, very nice. Anything else that catches your eyes? The heart? Uh-huh. Yeah, the tree, by the way, this tree is called the queen's tree. In Ladino, it's called bimbrio. And in Spanish, in the Ladino culture, it symbolizes fertility and growth. Yes, Meshi. The what? The woman on the left. She looks dejected. She a dejected lover? Yeah, no. Okay, so she looks sad, yeah? She looks sad. And do you see the difference in colors here? Yeah, you see red versus white, okay? All right. So this actually, by the way, my sister-in-law, she was listening to me singing the song, and then she's a painter. So while I was singing, she was she was painting, and that's what came up. Okay, so that's why I'm using this. But okay, so that's actually a song that describes a very important ritual in the Jewish tradition, and it's called going to the mikveh. Mikveh, in Ladino, it's called baño, Dia del Baño, which is, as you all know, the mikveh. The bride goes to the mikveh a day before the wedding, and it's the whole idea of spiritual renewal that the bride needs to do before they get married. So what you see here, actually, you see this young bride. She's dressed in red. So red, the symbol of red is, what is? Impurity, yeah? Red, the red color is a symbol of impurity. And on the back, this is her mother-in-law and future mother-in-law. That what she does, she is encouraging her to jump into the water. And it's frightening because obviously she doesn't know how to swim, but it's like jumping into the water, it meaning you have to catch your destiny. You have to, and don't be fearful of what's waiting for you in the future. And eventually, after she goes into the water, she's going through this process of purification. She gets out of the water. Now she's dressed in white, and now she goes in a river. And also the symbol of a river is that you flow with the river to something that nobody knows, but this time she's going with her future groom. So, I brought you this because we can learn from this song and everything, you know, in the lyrics, which I'm going to show you the lyrics now. It's called Ya salió de la mar. And this is the translation. So from this song, we can learn about a very important ritual and what was, you know, important for Sephardic women to teach the girls what they have to do. And also, the song brings us all these metaphors that it's very optimistic. It's really, it's about the rich Sephardic culture. And I'm going to sing this song to you as well. Mucha chica está en el baño, mucha chica está en el baño, vestida de colorado. Échate a la mar y alcanza. Échate a la mar yo bien me echaba. A la mar yo bien me echaba, si la suegra de ciencia me daba. Échate a la mar y alcanza. Échate a la mar. Ya salió de la mar la galana, ya salió de la mar la galana con un vestido ali blanco. Ya salió de la mar con un vestido ali blanco. Ya salió de la mar. Entre la mar y el río, entre la mar y el río, mos creció un árbol de bimbrío. Ya salió de la mar, mos creció un árbol de bimbrío. Ya salió de la mar. All right, so now we're going to move to the second group, which is called the Crypto Sephardic women. Now, as I said, we don't have a lot of musical pieces that we can learn about the life of the crypto women, Sephardic women, mostly conversos. However, we know from some documents about the domestic rituals that they conducted at home. So, why they kept the ritual? Because the act of performing ritual provided them, first of all, an emotional context through which they can, relate very strongly to their identity, to their heritage. And the use also of the ritual helped them maintain this hidden connection to also their, not only to their historical memory, but also to their, existing community. Okay. Let me just skip this one because I want to move. So what happened after the Jews, when they left Spain, as I said, the one who wanted to keep their Jewish identity, their Jewish faith, they just fled out of Spain, and the one who converted, something terrible happened to the Jewish community. And so first of all, there was a demise of the Jewish institution, like there was no synagogues anymore. So, and men were deprived from the public domain because usually men used to go to synagogues to pray. So the focus of the practice moved actually from men to women, and as a result, it empowered the women, especially their religious role. And this shift enabled the women to create this, I call it matrilineal descent, which was quite amazing that they were able to do it, because as I said at that time, men were the dominant controlling forces. And also it allowed them to create their own, spiritual practice, the way they interpret this. The second thing that happened as a result of this traumatic event, this crisis, is that suddenly they didn't have books, they didn't have kosher food. The whole idea of having a moral authority was just, disappear. And so what happened is that whatever they remembered about observing some, Jewish ritual, they passed it from one generation to another. And as you know, if you don't have books to rely on, and if you do it orally, then a lot of things get omitted and distorted. Now, it is important to note here that this was the opportunity for women to take a leading role in keeping whatever left from the Jewish religions, to keep it and to preserve it. And what happened? Suddenly, they embody some new roles, like they became slaughtered, like shochet, circumciser, teachers, healers, working with the purification of the dead bodies, even interpret the some halachic issues. They composed prayers that reflect mercy and forgiveness for compromises they had to make because they live, in secrecy. So, in terms of the music for the crypto women, they use music mostly when it was combined, with prayers, and they mix it with some healing modalities, like using herbs. So when they were taking care of the sick, so they were using herbs, but at the same time doing, singing some songs, healing songs to the needy or to the ill patients. By the way, I took this picture I didn't want to talk about it because I want to talk more about Dona Gracia Nassi, but this is actually in Belmonte, Portugal. I highly recommend if you go there one day. This is a synagogue of a converso community that came back to life. And when I say came back to life, they just sort of like converted back to Judaism. And there was a big donor, I think it was a Moroccan Jew, who decided to give a lot of money to rebuild this synagogue. And I actually was visiting this place in Purim, during Purim, which is the most important holiday for the converso. And I must tell you that I felt a little bit strange there because they were looking at me like they were very suspicious. They were very suspicious of any tourist that came there. But it's very interesting to see how they lead services now, and they, in a way, they still keep, the old customs. It's called Bet Eliyahu Synagogue, but I'm not going to talk about it because I want to go. Just a few words about the situation today about the crypto-Jewish. In Brazil, there are close to 10 million Jews Brazilian Christians, but they have a DNA ancestry that bring them back to Judaism, which is quite interesting. And now it's a new trend that people are looking for some, Jewish connection among the converso community. Okay, so now this is the highlight of the talk. I want to talk about Donna Gracia Nassi, which is called La Señora. So Donna Gracia, which unfortunately she didn't, in terms of the history book, she didn't get the right credit for what she was doing for her people, for the Jewish people, her life legacy. But now it's changing, and there are some books about her, and I think that in Tiberias in Israel, they established a big center with her name. So it's coming back. Okay, so who is Donna Gracia Nassi? First of all, she is a 16th century, like the Middle Ages, a crypto-Jewish woman. When I say crypto, because she was born to a Jewish family, but then her family converted to Christianity, and they moved to Portugal. Now, one more thing that I mentioned here in the slide, that she had this long-term vision of how to save Jews, which was in bringing them to Palestine, starting in Tiberia. So it's like she had this vision of going from Portugal, bringing Jews from Portugal to the Promised Land. And I'm mentioning this because it happened 330 years before Theodor Herzl wrote his famous book, The Jewish State, which also, suggests that Jews need a national home at that time in Palestine. So she was she had this, she had envisioned the future many years before what we call the Zionist, the emergence of the Zionist movement. Okay. So she was born in Lisbon, Portugal in 1510, and her name, by the way, this is the Christian name, is Beatriz, but then the Jewish name is, Donna Gracia, and she was born to a very wealthy family. Her parents, they owned a banking company, and they had a lot of commercial connection with the entire world. Mostly, they had some ships that did some business with India and the whole business of spices, importing spices, and at home, even though they were conversos, she grew up with a strong Jewish identity. And at the age of 18, she got married to Francisco Mendez. And after 2 years, they had a baby, a girl called Raina. And Francisco, her husband, and his brother, Diego, they established a secret network to help conversos flee out of or escape from the Inquisition in Portugal. And this secret underground network actually took the converses from Portugal to Antwerp in Belgium, and then from there to Italy, and from Italy to Turkey. In 1536, Francisco, her husband, died, and he left her to take, he left her, the estate, the entire estate. And it's not, I mean, she was very young, and suddenly she has, she has to deal with all these business affairs, which of course was very challenging for her. But since his death, she and her brother-in-law, Diego, they worked together. So there was a partnership between them. And she started developing contacts with, the high society, with kings and princes and, and aristocrats. And even she was trying to, she had even connection with the Pope to ask him to stop the Inquisition, which was not very successful. In 1543, Diego, which is her brother-in-law, died, and now she left completely alone, and the entire estate was in her hands. And however, she learned, after he died, she learned that he had a lot of debts, and she had also to take care of this, but she managed, due to her shrewdness and her connection, she managed to revoke all these charges. And here it's very important to use that all the time, whenever she was encountering, all these high power people, she felt she was very, she had this attitude of I would say, boldness and assertiveness, and without fear. She was not, she was not afraid to face any adversity. And in 1547, she moved to Venice, Italy. And then there she had a battle with her sister, who wanted to get some of her, the share of the inheritance, and Donna refused to give it to her. So as a result, she went to the authorities, and she reported that Donna Gracia is planning to transfer all the assets to Turkey, and also she lives openly as a Jew. And as a result, she was arrested. But the Turkish Sultan came to rescue her, and she was released from jail. And then she didn't feel comfortable living in Venice, so she moved to Ferrara in 1548. And then in Ferrara, she lived like an open Jew. And she, at that time, she already reconciled with her sister. And despite the fact that she lived relatively under safe condition, she didn't feel comfortable, and she decided to move to Turkey. And she was only 43 years old. So she moved to Turkey, and of course, excuse me. In Turkey and Istanbul, she decided to realize her life dream. And the life dream is, as I said, to take care of all these hundreds of converts that she managed to help escape from Portugal. But it's not enough to give them shelter, to give them money, or to give them jobs. It's not enough. For her, what was important is to bring them back to Judaism. And in order to do it, she built synagogues, and she built yeshivot, which is, Torah study organizations. And by that, she encouraged all the conversos, the Marranos, to return to their Judaism. So think about it. It's just an amazing, amazing project. And she did everything by herself. Of course, the Sultan was, cooperating with her and supported her. While she was in Turkey, something terrible happened. She learned that the Pope in Ancona, which is in Italy, had imprisoned Marranos that escaped from Portugal, because somebody probably told him that about this network. And he burned 26 of these conversos. So the response of Donna Gracia to this tragedy was to boycott Ancona, because she had all these, she had shipping companies, she had all this connection, and she decided that the Ancona port is going to be, so people would not be able to use the port for any, commercial transactions. And however, that's very interesting. She was firm about it, and she wanted to do. She was very activist. Like she wanted to show to the Pope that this is wrongdoing. However, the Jewish community in Ancona didn't like it. They didn't like it. They were coward in this regard. And eventually the plan fell because, they were opposed this plan. Her final destination was in Tiberias, in Israel. On the 1560s, she acquired a lease from the Sultan, and she wanted to build a big, settlement, Jewish settlement in Tiberias, but not only in Tiberias, but also in the nearby villages. And she wanted to bring the Jews there. And she herself, she wanted also to settle there, but she didn't make it, and in 1569, she died. So by the time of her death, the escape route from Portugal to the Ottoman Empire ceased to exist. And also the Ottoman Empire began to decline. And a lot of conversos left to the New World. Okay, so I want to tell you that there are two important women leaders to me in Jewish history. One is Donna Gracia Nasi, which obviously she's a Sephardic, but the other one was Henrietta Sold, which I'm not talking about her. But to me, learning about the life legacy of Donna Gracia is very important because she was really an example, a role model for future generation of women, but not only of women, of the entire Jewish, what we call the Jewish leadership, because she exhibit, these skills and action that should serve as a model for future generation. So I just I summarize it I wrote 6 points. 1, strong Jewish identity, confronting adversity with fearless attitude. She was determined, she was courageous, she used all her wealth, and she was extremely, extremely rich in terms of, of the money that she had, and she used it to save her people. She wanted to bring back the conversos to Judaism, to save them, actually. It was a sort of like salvation for them. And most importantly, when we talk about leaders today, is that leaders need a big vision, okay? What is the long-term goals, and what are the strategies or the step that we need to take in order to fulfill this long-term goal? And I'm talking about Jewish leadership here in America, talking about Jewish leaders in Israel, I mean the entire Jewish world. Now, and the other thing is that sometimes she had to use what we call the Machiavellian way, is to use unacceptable means in order to achieve her noble goals. Okay, here is the tomb of Donna Gracia in Israel. And if you go there to Tiberia, you probably would see this. And this is the end of my lecture. I was trying to share with you some of the insights that I have about Sephardic women in both groups, the one who kept the Jewish faith and the one who forcefully needed to convert to Christianity, but still were exhibit unshakable, I would say, unshakable commitment to keeping the Jewish tradition alive. And for one who is interested to read more about Donna Gracia and see, here are some few books that I would recommend. You can take notes if you want. And if you have any questions, please ask me. I'm here. Yes. I'll give you the mic because I don't hear you.
I understand that in 100 years before 1492, in 1392, there was a terrible pogrom, and there were many, many forced conversions. Did any of the Jews, 1391, whatever it was, 100 years, about 100 years before. Right.
That's actually the beginning of a massive conversion.
Yes. Did any of those people become crypto-Jews as well?
Yes.
So, okay, so it actually even before 1492, right.
But when I say here that by 1492, because in 1492 the one who didn't convert, they left. So I said the Jewish community is divided into these
Right.
three groups. Yeah. Thank you. Yeah.
And these people who were crypto-Jews,
Yes.
did the knowledge of their inheritance die out? I mean, centuries went by.
Yeah.
So how much survived?
Yeah, not much. So what you learn today, if you go, let's say, you can go to community in New Mexico, here even in the United States, you can see that some of them are still lighting candles in secret. Yes. Some of them, they don't know why they do it, but because, their mothers or grandmothers, they did it, so they just follow the tradition, but they don't know the meaning of why they have to light candles. So, yeah, so that's the problem when you lose basically the roots of the actual tradition. Yeah. Yes, Meshi? No? Okay. No, yeah, he has the mic here.
Thank you very much. From what you were saying, it seems like the Sephardi women did better than the Ashkenazi women because we have no real figures in Ashkenazi history. If they were, at best they wrote pulp novels. My mother told me she would read romance novels in Yiddish. But it seems like the Sephardi women actually succeeded far better. My question is, how much did Spanish culture influence these women? Going the opposite of what you're saying, was there any influence from the culture outside to these Moranos, Conversos people?
Okay, you're talking about the influence of the Spaniard culture on the Sephardi women who lived in the Ottoman countries or in Spain?
In Spain.
In Spain, obviously, there was some, some sort of, exchange, cultural exchange, and so I don't know exactly how much, but there was an exchange. Also, I want to tell you in terms of the music, for example, in terms of the music, the flamenco, which are the gypsies who live mostly, in the south part of Spain, in Seville, they had exchange with the Jews and musical exchange, and the Jews learned from them, and the gypsies learned from the Jews. So that's something. You can see along history that there always, some cultural exchange. And I'll tell you, most of the Sephardic music that we are familiar today, like the popular Sephardic music, it's actually composed in the 19th century, even the early 20th century, and so it was after the departure from Spain, because it's very hard. I mean, there is very little documentation about melodies, mostly melodies that were from the time before the expulsion. Yes. Ira.
Curious, does some of this later Sephardic music come from Amsterdam or New York or London?
The Sephardic music, you mean
The later,
what?
the later in the 19th century.
The later, maybe, but I can tell you that there are some, Europe. If you're talking about Europeans, so it was, okay. There are some songs that if you try to identify the melodies, so some of them has some, I would say, Turkish echoes. Some of them has some Greek, I can tell you that there is, if you're talking about Amsterdam, so there is a very famous synagogue there, which is the Portuguese. So there is a very famous tune that you're probably familiar with. It's called Ose Shalom, which is called Ose Shalom Imromav Uyase Shalom Aleinu ve'al kol Israel ve'imru amen. It's coming from this synagogue, yeah. That's from Amsterdam, yes, yeah. Any other question? Yeah, you wanted to ask, where is the mic? Ira? Yeah.
I was just interested to know about religious study with Ladino families and Torah, studying Torah. Were the Torahs written in Spanish? How did that interact within the culture?
Very nice. So first of all, they translated the biblical text into Ladino. And the reason they did, and they did it quite actually later, mostly in Salonika and Istanbul. And the reason they did it because they wanted to, that the Jewish text is going to be more accessible to the public. And initially, they wrote the Ladino script in Rashi. Are you familiar with the Rashi script? Yeah. And then after, I think it was the beginning of the 20th century, they moved to the Latin alphabet. But at the beginning, it was Rashi script, which I found it very difficult to read, but yeah. Yes?
So what role is the Sephardic trend of music taking place in Israel today?
Oh, that's a fantastic question. Well, I'll tell you, the language might be, dying because unfortunately, not many people speak the language. However, the music is all over. There are festivals. And I would even say that even non-Jewish people, like, especially in South America, singers, they take the music and they sing it in a new way, like they give it a new interpretation. And so the Sephardic music, it became a world music. Okay? I don't know if it's good or not, because when you do it, so you basically losing the authenticity of the songs. But they are very popular in Israel, very popular, yeah. Yes. Just a sec. Well, you go to YouTube, you write the name Ladino songs. You can go to I have a lot of songs in YouTube, so you can put my name and you can listen to some of the songs. I would recommend to listen to Yoram Gaon. He's a very famous singer. Also, he's one of the models for me, anyhow. There is also another singer, Rivka Raz. I don't know if you remember her, but she was very popular in Israel. And also Avraham Ferreira is really amazing. Even some of the songs, even cantorial, piyutim, Sephardim piyutim. You can find it by Avraham Ferreira and other singers. Yeah. By the way, Piyut, it's a website that you can learn about different traditions, including the Sephardic, the Ladino tradition, but also they have in piyut.com. They have liturgical songs that, by the way, were sang by men, not by women. The liturgical song, this is the area that men were controlling. Women sang ballads and canticas, and so you can learn a lot about different traditions, and like in Mizrahi, Iraqi, Suri, etc. Yeah. Yes. What? Piyut, piyut.com. Piyut is P-I-Y-U-T. Yeah.
One more question.
Yeah.
Dr. Amado,
Yeah.
You have given a fascinating presentation tonight.
Thank you.
Especially how the culture has been preserved. So I have a question, then a little bit of an anecdote, so I'll speak quickly. You say that Ladino is actually dying out in modern Israel, and I'm sure parts of South America, for obvious reasons, but is the music in that form, are their grandmothers still conveying that over? And here's my observation. About 30 years ago, I heard a lecture by the author Trudy Alexi at the original Earthling bookstore. Mm-hmm. She presented her book, which had just been published, called The Mezuzah in the Madonna's Foot.
Okay.
Okay, her family originally came from Czechoslovakia. She was born in this country, her parents Holocaust survivors, but they came from, they had a Sephardic background. Mm-hmm. And she talked about, as you addressed, there are people who are doing these rituals. They do not know necessarily the root cause, like the other room, or when grandfather was really worried, he would go to a special room, and he would don a special garment.
Yeah.
He would only pray in a certain way.
Yeah.
So conversos would kiss the statue of the Madonna, but in the Madonna's foot there was the mezuzah. I have
Yeah.
another anecdote.
It's fascinating, yeah.
About 17 years ago, my ex-wife and I were at an event about early California in the ranch outside San Juan Bautista.
Oh.
The early days of vaqueros, the ranching, the dons. And yes, there were Jewish cowboys back then.
Yeah.
As you pointed out, to escape the Inquisition, you would go to La Frontera. You would go as far as you could. So we went to a cafe in town one night. Doña Esther's is still there. Her granddaughter was running the house, and we wanted to get their specialty, which was artichoke enchiladas. She says, "Oh, those are so delicious. Don't get the pork enchiladas." I said, "We don't eat pork." She says, "I can't stand it either. I've never touched it in my life. I don't like the way it smells. I don't like the taste."
Yeah.
I said, "But you never ate it." Because my grandmother would never cook with it. We only serve it for our customers.
Wow.
These families,
Fascinating.
they are
yeah.
conversos in Central California. No. No, they didn't. Of course not.
Thank you for your comments. Yeah.
Thank you. Rivka, thank you so much for sharing this passion of yours and all this deep, deep knowledge of yours. And when are you going back to Berkeley?
By the end, by early June,
So
yeah.
that's not too long from now. And I
No.
hope you'll return to Santa Barbara soon.
Yeah, I might return, maybe for 1 quarter, we'll see. I want to say, I had some in my car, but maybe if you are interested in getting, I have 2 CDs with me. If you are interested in getting some, let me know and I can bring it for my car.
There'll be a trunk sale in the parking lot. And fashions as well. So anyway, we'll next meet in the sanctuary here Friday night at 6 o'clock for Shabbat services. Saturday morning services are at Hillel this week. And then Sunday night at 7 o'clock here we have a Yom HaZikaron program led by Rabbi Bel Michael, who's here. And that's for the Israeli Memorial Day commemoration here at 7 p.m. With Israeli scholar and poet Rachel Corazon.
Corazon.
Thank you. Not Corazon. That's a different.
Yeah,
that's,
Corazon is hard, yeah, but Corazon.
I'm just filled with Ladino tonight. Corazin. Corazin, she'll be here as well. 7 o'clock for our Yom HaZikaron program. Thank you so much. Toda Rabah.